Hello, everyone. This is Bernie Strom, and welcome to my YouTube channel for the Comeback podcast with Diamonds and Dice with Beatles Eternally, and yours truly, Bernie Strom. I would like to welcome anybody who wanders in here over the next hour, hour and a half that we sit and chat and talk about baseball games. We talk about gaming, why cards and dice, and why digital gaming? It's been about a year since Beatles and I have done one of these, and what I've gotten emails from time to time, uh, people wanting to hear another one of these shows. So here it is. I contacted Beatles. We found a day we will both be able to do it, and here we are. So welcome back, Beatles.
Hey, thanks, Bernie. It's great to be back. It's been a crazy year of all kinds of other things. So this feels like being back home again.
Oh, that's great. Well, we decided that we were going to talk about why cards and dice and why digital gaming, as you can see on the screen, because we're a tight knit community, but in this community, there's certainly a faction that loves cards and dice, and there's a faction that loves digital gaming, but there aren't too many people that play them both. They either love one or love the other. And from time to time, we get into discussions here online about this subject, and we thought we'd just talk about it back and forth. If anybody has any questions, just type them into the chat. We'll get to them. And why digital gaming is a good subject to start with Beatles, because that's how Beatles entered this hobby of baseball gaming. And so I'm going to turn it over to him and let him kick it off.
Thanks, Bernie. Or lead off if we want to use baseball terminology. Yeah. So I think there's one other person in the community who said that he started with digital gaming, but most of you started with cards and dice. So for me, I was just, one of the kids, man. It was like all about computers and computer games and everything like that. But always and just always in my mind and in my soul about I always wanted to be able to play baseball, but I didn't mean things like hardball or things like that. The arcade games. I wanted to be able to play with real players and manage and everything like that. And so I remember just picking up an Amiga magazine, and there it was, Earl Weaver Baseball, and I was absolutely entranced. And that was it. And then found Micro League Baseball, and it was all of a sudden like all these stats and all these things that I would just be mesmerized in the back of baseball cards. Now I'm seeing my heroes and anti-heroes and even villains playing the game that I love so much. And so I'll just take another minute here. I mean, one of the things that I do is I'm an artist. And so I can think in the abstract of a vivid imagination and things like that. But there was something for me, and let me clarify quickly. This this podcast that we're doing tonight is not about which is better. So hopefully, if somebody has some comments, we're going to try to keep it positive, like why you've chosen a format over another, or if you do both. And so for me, it was, while the imagination was there, I wanted to be able to feel kind of a little bit more hands-on. I wanted to see those ballparks and stuff like that. So, Earl Weaver, you could build your own ballparks, so you'd look at a picture of Forbes Field and you tried to, you could recreate it and stuff like that. So that was my first, and I'll get to my other reasons as we get into the podcast further, but it was because I wanted to actually experience baseball in the middle of winter in a baseball park. Virtual though it would be, although back in the 90s we weren't quite using the term virtual yet. So there you go, Bernie.
Let me ask you a question, because I'm curious about something.
Mhm.
Even before I played my first cards and dice game, which was in 1962, and it was APA, I would I was 5, 6, 7 years old. You'd go into the arcades, and there'd be baseball pinball machines, and I
Mhm.
was just drawn to those things. if it was a baseball game, I wanted to play it. Did you ever experience anything like that?
I did. I mean, because like even you even move into the the arcades. I mean, they pinball machines were still around then, so yeah, it was really cool. And I also found myself in the old quarter munchers. So what was it, World Series baseball and all those other sort of arcade machines. You had to you put in a quarter for a half inning or whatever, and boom, boom, boom. So yeah, I've been drawn to those for a second. Were the space shooters? Had to love those, but yeah, definitely. Um,
Yeah.
but
Of
I
course, of
think.
course, the ones I were
Mhm.
drawn to were mechanical. It was long before digital anything.
But you know what? What's really cool is when you were hitting those flippers, right? That had to feel like hitting the ball, right? Didn't it?
It felt like hitting the ball, and when it hit the ramp in center field and went up, the ball went up over the wall. There was nothing like that feeling of hitting a home. It was like hitting a real home run out in the playground.
Nice. I like that. So there is that kind of that connection. That this it is a visceral connection, which I want to touch on later about digital gaming. But yeah,
Well, that's how I got started with cards and dice. It was 1962, and I'm
under President Kennedy. Yeah.
yep, and he was still alive, and I can't remember which publication, whether it was the Sporting News or something like that. And there's the ad. You
You read
could
my
be a
mind.
you could be a manager. And I read this ad, and I don't not even sure where I got the money. It wasn't that expensive, $10, $15. I got the money together and I sent away for this thing. And of course, I mailed it in. And then about a week later, I would spend every day waiting for the mailman to come with the game. And
So
he finally came with it. I opened it up and I was in seventh heaven, spread it out all over my parents' living room floor, and started to replay Red Sox Yankee games. The first thing I ever did.
so Bernie, could you talk a little bit more about that unboxing? What did that feel like when you're looking at those cards, right? Because if like all baseball fans, right? I mean, we would look at the picture of a baseball card, but what did we immediately do, right? Turned it over, looked at the stats. Can you talk a bit more about that first experience and that unboxing? What it was like to look at those cards, knowing like I'm going to be playing a Red Sox game here in a few minutes. Could you talk about that?
Sure. What's funny about me is there are people that play APA and these card games that know these cards backwards and forwards, know what percentage the guy's going to have to hit a single, a double, a home run, what percentage of strikeouts he's going to have, just based on the mathematics of looking at the card. Well, to me, the card was always just numbers and a name on it. I like to see the nicknames. APA had nicknames on the cards in those
Hmm.
days, height and weight and position or whatever. But I've always been primarily concerned from that day to today on the game itself, on who won the game. My team, the Boston Red Sox. I've always played the Boston Red Sox. I want them to win. When
Uh
I
huh.
grew up, they lost. They were a losing team. I can remember baseball back to about 1959. And from 1959 to 1966, which encompasses the period of time we're talking about here, uh, the Red Sox lost a lot of baseball games. So they always lost. I wanted them to win. And this was my way of getting them to win. I was going to outsmart whoever the manager was at that time. I was going to roll these dice. I was going to get the Red Sox to win. I didn't. I didn't spend a lot of time analyzing the percentages of the guy hitting a single or a double or a home run or how many times he was going to strike out and walk. I just wanted to I just wanted the Red Sox to win. I've been playing the same way ever since.
I love it. I love it, and I love that the continuity and you wanting and having that. It's like okay, this is I'm going to reverse the all these years of losing, and I know I mean we all know here, Red Sox fans, and let's not forget our Cubbies friends, long suffering fans, and all those those droughts, and I think for especially for Red Sox fans that had to be even more painful because you guys had some You guys had some pretty tough teams that fell short, and I only say the year once, 1967, and then we'll move on that one.
Well, this
But,
isn't a Red Sox podcast, so we'll say that
Yeah.
for another time. But
Yeah.
I
No.
started with cards and dice, and of course, then after I discovered girls, I probably took 30 years off from playing the game.
Oh God, I gave away my whole Matchbox and Hot Wheel collection, and I'm looking at the prices of those things now, and I'm like, you idiots. Yeah.
And
Hey,
I
John,
remember,
welcome in.
I remember. Hey, John, how you doing? I remember buying. I said to myself, these games still got to exist. It's like in the 1990s. So I found APA, and I sent away for an APA game 30 years after I bought the first one. However, I was in business and I had kids growing up, and I just didn't have time to play. I played a few games, and I said, boy, this is great. But in the end, it ended up in my closet, and I had too many other things to do. But when I came back, I was cards and dice. In between that, though, we discovered the computer about 1980, and I did play digital games back then, and I've always enjoyed digital games. I played SSI's Computer Baseball on the Apple II computer back in 1980, 81.
I've seen that game. In fact, I have it on an emulator. Yeah.
And of course, I played in television baseball and things with little blips just all over the place. It really wasn't baseball. Quite frankly, digital baseball in those days was actually, it was like playing Pong. I much preferred cards and dice. And I could see the players. I could follow the plays in my head. If I rolled the dice and the player hit a single into left field, I was actually picturing the single in my head into left field. It was also in 3D video in my head.
Oh, sure.
It was just like looking at a computer screen. And then, of course, you mentioned Earl Weaver baseball and all that stuff. Those games came out, and they started to put those pictures that were in my head in the screen, opposed to
Micro League Baseball as well, and the Commodore 64. That one was like the war, and Full Count Baseball. Can't forget that one.
Yeah, and these things started to slowly convert me into a digital gamer.
Oh, nice, John. John just talking about his big Strat cards and dice today. And you know what, John? We'll expand on your I'm sorry, Bernie. I'm just thinking there's a great thing here that we can talk about too when we get to. But please continue. I'll tell you what I'm saying in a second. I'm sorry.
Well, the Yankees might have won today in the cards and dice game, but they lost at Fenway Park 4-3.
Awesome.
Red Sox beat them 2 games in a row. Anyway, to make a long story short, get back to what I was doing here.
Yeah,
I started to like digital gaming, but it didn't seem to be as immersive as cards and dice. Cards and dice seemed to be more comprehensive. There was more because you could see everything that was happening, and you looked at the charts, and it just looked like it was a more substantial game. But digital has worked its way over the last 25 years into things like Out of the Park baseball.
Oh, yeah.
It's like watching baseball.
Yeah.
And today I'm more of a digital guy. But when I came back, I was a cards and dice guy. I liked feeling the cards. I liked rolling the dice. I liked thinking about the game as I was playing it. But today, with all the convenience of digital gaming, keeping the stats, simming games that you don't want to play, I think that if you're a gamer like we are and you want to do season replays, I can't imagine not doing them digitally.
So I what can I say? I agree with you on every point. I can't say that, so for me, because I started with digital baseball, I didn't get into cards and dice baseball until I was at university. And, I've said many times that, my best buddy and I, Brian, at Penn State, we would play hours and hours and hours of Status Pro baseball. We played some APA. We even played some Strat. Status Pro was the game we loved, though. That's the one that we really loved. And I enjoyed Cards and Dice against somebody else because I didn't know what Brian was going to, we were, again, just like in a baseball game. Well, okay, I've got Hannes Wagner on first, or I got Maury Wills. Do I want to steal? Well, wait a minute, but is he going to try a pitch out here or what have you? And I liked that. But when I found that playing Cards and Dice by myself, it's very relaxing. It's nice to roll the dice or flip the fast action card. And while I know that Cards and Dice baseball, will have those checks for steal and stuff like that, I find that for me, and this doesn't make digital better, but it's different, is I find that when I'm playing digital baseball, there are some unknowns. And in a strange way, for me, I feel more like I'm now again on my channel. I let the computer manager do both because I like just interacting with the chat. The game's secondary. But when I'm playing offline, I love to manage and I want to try to, and I'll play pitch by pitch a lot of times. And I don't know what that computer manager is going to do. And I like that. Whereas with Cards and Dice, we talk about open engines and closed engines. Well, I think that also has to do with this, right? So if you have a Cards and Dice game that has a steal check on it, well, if I roll the dice, guy didn't get a good jump. Okay, but on the next pitch in a digital baseball game, maybe he does. And so I found myself in Cards and Dice, at least, making these house rules. And I started making so many house rules. I'm like, But just roll the dice, when I can get myself in that mindset of rolling the dice and playing Cards and Dice, I actually do get that what you were talking about, that sort of 3D video, and then it becomes real. But my thing is I have to distance myself from that mindset of playing against a computer manager or against a human being and just realize, hey, I'm just playing out baseball, however it plays. And that's what I do with Pocket Pennant Run. What I wanted to mention about John here, and I think this is fun. So I know John's John plays both because John's a big Out of the Park fan. But he's also big strat guy. I don't know if John's physically big. I mean, big into it, right? But look how he's talking about the game. And here's something where I think why Cards and Dice and why digital gaming. Well, I mean, I think there's a way to bring those two together. For John is reporting this game that he had today between the 61 Yanks and the Tigers as if it was a real baseball game that he might have listened to an MLB network or caught on the telly or what have you. And isn't that beautiful? I mean, it's wonderful. He makes 4 statements here about this game. Maris hitting that home run, and the verbiage he uses here had a great ending, right? Maris with a 2-run homer in the top of the 9th. Isn't that, I mean, that's something that we baseball fans, right? We wait for those big moments to happen on the diamond. And for John, that happened. It's not fiction. It's not fiction, is it? Right?
Well, I think that crosses over between Cards and Dice and digital gaming.
It does.
The fact that Babe Ruth, Ted Williams, Roger Maris, they don't die. They don't retire.
No.
They live as long as we do, and we want to play them. And it is true when you see Ted Williams' name on a card, whether it be a Strat card or an Apple card or any card from a game, you get a different feeling than when you see Tony Kubek, for example.
Yeah. Agree.
You look like you're looking at a superstar. The card looks different. The numbers are different. But interesting. I've become a digital gaming person, but I do love playing Cards and Dice, and I do it for 2 different reasons. I'm curious what you think of this. I like to do season replays, and by doing the Red Sox season replays to change history, as I spoke about earlier in the
Mhm.
broadcast. I tend to do them over and over again because it's really hard to change history with Red Sox teams. And in order to replay all these seasons, whether it be 67, 72, 75, 78, 86, 2003, whichever one you want to pick,
Mhm.
it's hard to do. You just can't play all those games. You have to do it digitally to simulate games that you're not playing.
Mhm.
And to accumulate the stats. So that's what turned me into a digital gamer. But if I'm sitting around the house on a Saturday afternoon and I'm not playing a project, I love taking out a cards and dice game and putting it on my kitchen table and opening a beer and just roll the dice and having a fun time. And I've got a
Right.
lot of these games. But
Mhm.
I don't play the cards and dice too often anymore because I'm so caught up in doing all these projects. And I guess that's the question I want to ask you.
Mhm.
Are you? I know when you go on YouTube and do your videos, you're not really. You do both projects and single games.
Mhm.
Are you currently doing a lot of projects? And if you are you doing any cards and dice projects or just digital projects?
So mainly digital. I mean, the only thing that I can say as far as cards and dice, and again, some people might say, well, it's not purely cards and dice, but I do say it is, even though they're not maybe the physical ones, just because of space and everything. And I should hasten to add, one of the things that sort of keeping me from jumping full on back into cards and dice is just lack of room. And I have two very playful cats, and things go boom, boom, boom. But Pocket Pennant Run gives me the best of both worlds. So I can play. I have a way of playing cards and dice that has a very small footprint, and my cats, they can't really bat the cards and dice all over the place. And believe me, especially my girl cat Darcy, she's 3 or 4 now, but she still acts like she's 6 or 7 months old. She's staring at me now as I say her name. So, but for me, the things I'd like to do, apart from playing games, and so this is back in digital, is thinking about what kinds of things I can create in any of these baseball games, whether it's a la park, action PC, baseball for Windows, whatever, and playing with them that way. So part of my baseball time is exploring and trying and really pushing, okay, what can I do? Given that I have all of these games that give me everybody who's ever played baseball, right? Most in Major League Baseball. And then, Pocket Pennant Run, even adds more on that. It's like, okay, what can I do? What kind of thing can I come up with? And I think about that in terms of what is possible with digital. And so I'll answer the question, for me, why digital gaming? It's because with digital gaming, there was absolutely no limit to what I can create. Whereas with cards and dice, there is. And again, this is not about being better. It's about what I want to do. I would have to be wealthy to do some of the things. The Ned McGreevy League would have been impossible with cards and dice. It just would have. There's no way we could have done it. The spin-off leagues that I have nothing to do with, but were inspired by McGreevy, like Fields of Dreams and the Shanks League that prior to that. Imagine doing those with cards and dice. You'd have to have all those seasons. You'd have to have, right, because the way you guys do things in Fields of Dreams, right? You can draft, the player progresses a season forward or back inexorably, either to before his rookie year when he's done or when he retires, unless you guys have changed those rules.
No, those are the rules.
Right. So with a digital game, I can easily do that. If like, for instance, Pure Sim Baseball and Out of the Park Baseball are career mode games, so they'll just keep advancing. Now, to make them go backwards, you have to finesse them a little bit. But I want to know, what can I do? So I can fire up Action PC Baseball, for instance, and not even using any of the other seasons I bought, just use the baseball history collection and say, all right, I want to create a team of the best players from 1945 to 1965. I want to create an 8-team league. I'm going to let the computer manager draft everybody. I'm going to set these parameters. Bang, what am I going to come up with? And I like that. It's for me, it's about freedom. And because I'm not a rich dude, again, I look around in this little space in which I'm staying, and I'm thinking about, again, your Fields of Dreams League, how many cards that would fill up in this room to be able to do something like that, and it's just untenable. So for me, you couldn't do it.
And
the other thing, if I might, just want one more quick thing, is that John, forgive me for this. I'm not knocking Strat cards and dice, but I still don't like the fact that there are some seasons that you just can't get, and I'm like, but why? So that's another thing that kind of holds me back too. And I do know that there are lots of cards and dice games that do offer every season. APBA is one of them, of course. But it's about, I want to be able to create. And when I do replays, and this is not, I know some people use ancillary things to just simulate games, but that's meaningless to me as a player personally, because there's no stats being kept. And that's important too, because while I might want to manage my Pittsburgh Pirates, let's take the 1977 season, right, where the Phillies just gave us hell. It was we finished just behind the Phillies. That's always a fun one to do, to see, okay, can I take over the Phillies? But it's not just that. I want to see how everybody performed. All right, who did win the batting championship? Who did win? Who stole the most bases? Who hit the most home runs? What pitcher had the best ERA? Well, those little things, whether it's called ball score, ball stat, or whatever they are, that just simulate the role of a game. That's nice for guys that want to do a season replay. But the only stats that you're getting are the stats that you're keeping from your team. And so for me, I find that limiting. Now, again, that's just going under the rubric of a season replay if you're doing something like that, or a project. But if it's about, like you said, popping open, a few Guinnesses and just rolling the dice on a rainy afternoon, man, there's cards and dice are awesome for that. And interactively writing in the score sheet and doing your right, I love it. It's beautiful, and I wish I had the room to do it. But yeah, so my projects are digital, except for one coming up on Pocket Pennant Run, which I'll talk about on my channel. So
we have a good friend that finished a few months ago a project where he played cards and dice every game between every team in the 1987 season.
Yeah, Mike Silva, exactly.
And he's so involved with Out of the Park Baseball with his artwork and everything. You would think he'd be a digital guy, but Mike's a cards and dice player. He loves cards and dice games.
He does. He definitely does. And
now he's playing another. He's doing another project with thousands and thousands of games, teams. All the teams in history. Mm-hmm. I don't exactly know what it is, so I can't describe it. But he's playing most of the games, but he's also has to do it. He has to do it digitally because he's not going to play all those games. He couldn't play all those games in his lifetime. He has to play some of them digitally.
Well, and that's a good bridge, isn't it? That's a good bridge to what he's doing.
But I like playing them both because they both have great aspects. Other people don't. I mean, I watch guys on YouTube that play cards and dice day in and day out. They're on YouTube every day, rolling those dice.
Yep.
They don't want to touch a digital game. They think that digitally inside that computer somehow the game is either cheating or fixing something. And I don't get that. I think there's just digital gaming has a lot of conveniences. As Todd B comes by, how you doing, Todd?
Well, Todd asks a good question. He says, and I'd like to address this. I think this is a great question. He says, do you think cards and dice give the perception of the player, quote unquote, feel some kind of control over the outcome of the game because of the dice rolling itself, and therefore feel more involved. So my as you would expect, Todd, my answer is going to be a two-parter. So first, I know that, you know, talking to people like RJL and others, Ken Castro, that there is that rolling of dice, so that you know, it's tactile. It's tactile. There's motion, and it's not something you're staring at on a screen. So and that way, yeah, I would say that for a cards and dice player, that they would feel more involved. But now, from the perspective of a largely digital player like myself, I feel more involved. Again, I don't do this on the channel. Maybe I should start doing some more where I'm managing against the club while I'm broadcasting. Where I feel more involved is I would hold the digital, because I'm playing against a manager now. I have no idea what he's going to do. Now I'm involved, but I'm playing the chess game that a baseball manager plays. I don't have any charts to look at. I have no idea. Again, I use that you know, the example earlier. I was playing, you know, be playing my buddy, and you know, be playing Status Pro back in university, and I'd have Maury Wills on first. Well, I could try to steal with Maury Wills, but now I've got to think, okay, is Brian going to go for a pitch out? Is he going to try a pickoff? What have you? So the involvement for me in digital is just as visceral, because now I'm named the manager. I'm Jimmy Leyland. I'm Danny Murtaugh, who should be in the Hall of Fame, by the way, or what have you. So in that way, I feel that way. But maybe that's because I started with digital baseball. And so I can play that chess game. It's like, okay, what's he going to do? All right, the counts 3-2. I've got my cleanup hitter up, but it's late innings. I'm down a run. Do I want to take the bat out of this guy's hands? Do I want to try to get the guy into scoring position? With cards and dice, I never felt that I could do that unless I'm playing against a person. So in a way, Todd, for me personally, I feel less involved in a cards and dice game as a baseball manager, but I feel more involved as a cards and dice player as a player, if that makes any sense.
Let me ask you a question, because
yeah,
once again, this isn't my expertise. In cards and dice games, there's columns, numbers, results, where it gives you either results on the card or a result number. You have to go to a chart. And we can limit this to games people are familiar with, app and strat. There's a finite number of results that can happen.
Yes, that is
but
true.
That's not baseball.
No, that's not baseball.
On the baseball field, there's an infinite amount of results that can happen when the pitcher throws the ball and the batter swings.
Well,
that can only be replicated digitally. It can't be replicated in a cards and dice game.
You're right. And in fact, Dave Cook has stated that if it's happened in baseball, it's in Action PC Baseball. Now, he has said that. And I'm sure that, I've seen things in digital baseball that I haven't necessarily seen, depending on the game system that you're using. But I've seen some bizarre things. So yeah, I mean, you look at, I don't know how many results are there on just an Apple card. I don't remember. Is it like
that's like I said, it's not.
It goes from 11 to 66. So
right.
Whatever that is in terms of die rolls. Now you get games like fast action cards. Now maybe you're expanding that out some more because of permutations, right? We're not a math show here. But I think that there are more things certainly that can happen. I also will say this. There is one baseball game, and it's funny, so when I'm not playing very much right now, is Action PC Baseball is the only baseball game that can adapt to the rules of the time. So now we're talking 19th century. So if you play Action PC Baseball pitch by pitch and played in 1884, it would use the ball and strike rules of 1884. So digital,
it's a great game. It's got its flaws.
Every game has its flaws.
Right? What's that famous error message that pops up?
Oh God. I'm trying to remember because used to run into. I know, right? Because run into it a lot. But,
the famous action PC crash, and it
oh,
happens in every single one of their games.
yeah. But at least you can at least restore the game. But
Yeah,
look,
no
there's no
question.
perfect game. In fact, there's no perfect cards and dice game. Hey, Jamie, yeah, the runtime error. There it is. Thanks, Jamie. Good to see you, buddy.
Hey,
Um,
Jamie, how you doing?
yes, the runtime error. It's dreadful.
But
But
I
you know
love
what?
I
Is
love
there a
that game. I love that
so
game
what?
because of the infinite possibility of the results.
Yep.
Uh, I do play PC Replay Baseball, which
Mhm.
is actually a cards and dice game, but it's put in a digital form because it's easier for me to play digitally, even though that
Mhm.
I consider when you play PC Replay Baseball, I consider you playing cards and dice. I do
Mhm.
not consider you playing a digital game. A
Just
digital
as I
game
am
to
with
me
Pocket Pennant
is
Run.
action PC, out of the park baseball.
Right.
Those are digital games that
Oh
have
yeah.
infinite result possibilities.
Yep. Yeah. And so I just do the same with Pocket Pennant Run. You're playing cards and dice, even though it's on a screen. But you can play cards and dice. You can print them out, the cards and everything like that. But so yeah, there are those possibilities. Um, and another thing that I think is important is play by play. And I've got to mention two. You know what two baseball games I'm going to mention? Diamond Mine Baseball and Baseball for Windows. There is, I don't care. People have said, yeah, but if you read the Action PC, replay, or you read the Out of the Park replay, I have. Neither of those games can touch what Baseball for Windows and Diamond Mine Baseball do for replay. I can play a game of Diamond Mine Baseball, and that text play-by-play is so damn descriptive. It draws me in. It's amazing. Hey, Aaron. It does, and so that's the other thing. Cards and dice, I kind of have to, I can create my own play-by-play, I suppose. But I love the fact that here's this static screen. Both of them are static screens, right? But one of them has a Hall of Fame broadcaster, and tracking the games, tracking what's happening in your season, and so too with Diamond Mine Baseball, tracking what's going on and tracking how like, oh, the ball's starting to tail away from him. Oh, he's back in. And he's got it. And you're just glued. You're glued to the screen.
Well,
Um, you
like I
know,
said earlier, even cards and dice, if I roll a 66 and someone hits a home run, I actually see that home run in my brain.
mm-hmm.
I,
But
I can
yeah,
visually, it's strange, but my mind takes me to the ballpark and I see the play.
I agree with you. I do see it. And I see that same play if I'm reading it in Diamond Mine Baseball or I'm listening
Oh
to
yeah,
Ernie
me
call
too.
it. And so, but with, Jamie brings up, he says, I agree. I feel like I'm playing cards and dice with PC Replay without the work. For me, it's work. And that's the same with Pocket Pennant Run. And let's throw in two Digital Diamond Baseball, and PC Replay, Strat. I know you can roll your own dice. So we do have games that are bridging this supposed chasm that I still don't know even why it exists.
Well,
Right.
I think Jamie brings up such a good point that it answers a lot of the question of what this show's about. Why digital gaming? Well, he says it in his last sentence. Without the work, for me, it is work, and that's true. When it takes time to write down the the results of the play or enter it into another digital program like Digital Diamond. It's work. I think it takes away from the flow of the game,
Mm-hmm.
and it slows the game down to a point where it's less interesting. That's why I like PC Replay Baseball, for example, because it doesn't slow the game down terribly like it would if you had to stop and write down the results of the play. The most
Mm-hmm.
the most obvious part of that isn't baseball games, it's basketball games. Have you ever played a cards and dice basketball game?
I have heard from everybody who has that it's the most dreadful, boring experience you could ever imagine,
Well,
which is ironic because basketball is a very fast game.
I love playing cards and dice basketball, but you have to stop and you got to record the rebounds, the shots, the missed shots.
Well, that's
You
what
got
I
to
mean
record.
by
You
that.
got to record the fouls. You
Yeah.
got to record the rebounds, offensive and defensive. I mean, you spend most of your time recording things.
Probably
I mean,
longer than an actual NBA game, right? I'm
it
guessing.
is
I don't know.
longer. That's, for example, PC Replay Basketball does that all for you, and that's a cards and dice game, and
Well,
that's
that's
why I
cool.
like that game so much.
Mhm.
It's even more than baseball, in my opinion.
Wow. Okay. I just I don't know. I like the so John mentioned earlier in the chat, and he had sent me a Discord message about it. So thank you for that, John. This Strat Cards and Dice has released their Diamond Gem set, and they have a Dead Ball set. But here's my question, because I've been begging Ken Castro to do this forever, but I don't know whether he'll ever do it or not. If I was a Cards and Dice player, what I would do is I would buy something like those, like that Dead Ball Diamond Gem set, and yeah, I'd play through like a tournament or something for all those teams. But then I would separate all the position players and pitchers, shuffle them, and do a blind draft and create new teams. And I've noticed that when I bring that up for a lot of Cards and Dice, they don't want to do that. And it's like, why not? I don't understand that.
They don't want to put the cards back in the original teams.
Well, you take us. That's why God invented Sundays or Saturdays, or if you're Muslim, Fridays. Okay, I mean, there we go. Now we got the 3 holy days all set apart. I think it would be absolutely fun to take something like the APA pre-expansion, the BAT set, the pre-1960 expansion, those 16 original teams, play them out as Ken did, and then shuffle them up, make new teams that have never existed before. Put Babe Ruth on the Chicago White Sox, and put Ted Williams on the Detroit Tigers. However I think that would be so much fun. And I can do that with a digital game. But I would love to do that in a Cards and Dice game.
Speaking of cards, I know this isn't exactly what you're talking about, but it goes to what's on the screen, why Cards and Dice. I think there's a group of people that just like touching the cards.
Yep, I think you're right.
They like looking at the cards. They like staring at them. They like studying them. Just like you would baseball cards when you were a kid. You'd go buy a pack of baseball cards and you go through them and you stare at them. What else do you do with baseball cards? You put them in the spokes of your bicycle.
Well, you put the scrubs in the spokes of your bicycle. Yeah. Right, exactly.
Or you put them in your closet in a box. You go away to college and find out your mother threw them away while you were gone. But
so yeah.
I think people like touching the cards, and I also think people like throwing the dice. What's your thought on that?
Well, so here's a counterpart to that. I agree with that. I shouldn't say counterpart, but here's an addition to that. So while it's true I can't touch the cards, if I had out of the park baseball up right now, I could stare at stats for days and deep stats. I mean, this thing gives you all the sabermetrics and everything. So yeah, I can't touch the cards. But so with digital baseball, especially with deep games like Out of the Park Baseball and Action PC, and yeah, Baseball for Windows, even all those games, I can do all the stat staring, and I love it. But as far as the feel of rolling dice, yeah, you know what? Digital gaming is never going to have that unless we come up with some sort of weird interface where you can throw the dice and, all that stuff. And that's going to happen. I mean, if I'm thinking about it, people way smarter than me are saying, we're going to make a game where you can roll the dice and it's just going to, a little USB thing, and it's going to happen in your computer. And if nobody's thought about it, you have now, and you owe me money if you make the game. So yeah, there is that visceral, there is that tactile feeling of cards and dice. But let me ask a fundamental question. So I'm not arguing one is better over the other. I think both have their merits. But some people will argue the cards and dice is a better medium into baseball strictly because of the tactileness. But what you're doing there has no correlation at all to actually playing baseball. I mean, if you want to do that, get an old Nintendo Wii and play that baseball game where you're swinging the controller. because you're throwing dice. You're either throwing dice or you're clicking a mouse. But ultimately, I guess my question is why does one medium or another make you feel like you're more playing baseball? So I'm trying to make this a little bit more existential.
Well, I think
Perhaps?
some cards and dice games make you feel like you're playing baseball, and some
Okay.
digital games, the same thing, and some
Mhm.
don't. I'll give you a cards and dice game I've always had trouble with. It just doesn't feel like baseball to me. It's disjointed.
Which one is
Uh,
that?
Inside pitch.
Inside pitch. Okay, yeah.
To me, that game, you might as well stick needles in me to play that game.
I like watching others play it though.
It just disjointed. It just is. You got to look up. You roll the dice to get a pitch, and then roll the dice to get a hit, and then
Mhm.
roll the dice to run the bases, and roll the dice to throw the ball.
Midlife. Hey man.
Baseball is not that slow.
No, it's not. In fact, there's more action in a baseball game than there is in an American football game.
And midlife crisis comes by. Hi, midlife.
Yeah, he is. Hey man. So there is. I see again. You mentioned back. People were talking about. Oh well, I think the computer's cheating. You know what? My Irish great grandma used to say that stuff. But let's face it, man. I mean, it's just that we're not seeing the algorithms. We're not seeing the table because there's many more possible outcomes. I trust what they're doing. Now that being said, if you really want to get realistic results, whatever that is, because again, thank you, Dave Gardner, for this. As soon as you roll the dice, or as soon as you click that mouse button, you're already playing fantasy baseball. You're already in this fictional universe, if you will.
Question.
Right? Yeah. So people that want well, this didn't play out as well. Number one, what settings did you use? Okay, cards and dice baseball, that's set for you. Okay, it pretty much is there. Digital baseball gaming, ironically, actually requires more of an investment if you're trying to get as close to possible as how that season played out. And for some people, I think that's great. For me, that season's already done and passed. What will my intervention do?
Can I take you into the future with a question?
Oh, please.
Yeah. We talk about why cards and dice and why digital gaming, but I don't think we're too far away from holograms playing baseball games in our living room.
We're not.
And
I agree with
you can't do that with cards and dice. It has to be digitally. And it's not going to be with one of those headsets where you put the computer on your face.
Blech, yeah, virtual reality makes me puke.
I mean, virtual reality is great, except they got to find a way where you can do virtual reality without putting a computer on your eyes. Anyway, make a long story short, can you imagine holograms replaying the most famous baseball games in history right in front of your eyes in 3D in your living room? I hope I live long enough to see that.
I hope you will too, but what I want is a step further. I don't want to just rewatch the game. I want to manage the game. So I want to take it further. It will happen. I hope I live long enough to see it too. I want to actually be able to take this project that I'm going to be doing with Pocket Pennant Run after the next big update, to just have the community. All right, let's pick a game in history, and while we're playing it here in Pocket Pennant Run, let's talk about the game as it actually happened, memories you might have of it or whatever. But what you're talking about, Bernie, so let's say I want to play Game 7 of the 1971 World Series. I want to be the manager. I want to be Danny Murtaugh in that dugout, Game 7 at Memorial Stadium in Baltimore, right? And I do. Or I want to be able to replay that 1992 game where if Barry Bonds had listened to Andy Van Slyke, the Pirates would have gone to the World Series. Instead, Francisco Cabrera came up and boom, Sid Bream scored, game over. Braves go to the series, and Pirates start their decline until the 2010s.
Maybe that would be a great subject for one of our future shows, if we ever have another show.
Oh, we will.
Future,
Stop it,
the
Bernie.
future of the future of digital gaming. I'm glancing down at the chat. You might want to address some of these comments. They're very interesting. Midlife talks about Inside Pitch.
Says it's based on
Jamie
depth
talks
fit.
about Action
Yeah.
PC, out of the park, and PC Replay.
So I agree with you that it does, John. My thing is that digital baseball does that too, and I don't have to look at any charts. And so my contention is this, and again, just because of the way I approach the way I want to play it. All right, I'm going to pretend here, right? So pick your favorite baseball manager. He has probability charts now and stuff like that he can look at that are computer generated. That's going to tell him that such and such a player has done this thing. He's been this successful against the current pitcher that's in the ball game. So probability states there's never a certainty in either type of game or real baseball. There's no certainty, for instance, that Aaron Judge is going to just knock one out of the park because he's been hitting well off a pitcher all the time. Manager's got to play those probabilities. And so his job as a modern baseball manager is to play the probabilities. But John McGraw didn't have those probabilities. There weren't computers out there. McGraw had to think on the level of baseball strategy. I got a good hitter up there. They've got, whomever. And so there was no roll of the dice, right? McGraw had to manage and had to be prepared for all these contingencies. And I think that in that respect, neither digital nor cards and dice have reached that level of baseball. Neither of them. I would say digital maybe can obviously do more because you're dealing with far more results, as Bernie's talked about, and certainly artificial intelligences and things like that. They've been around in baseball games since 1984, since Micro League Baseball and the Baseball Buddha. Go on Internet Archive, guys, and look at old advertisements of Sparky Anderson endorsing Micro League Baseball. And he talks about the Baseball Buddha, and it was rudimentary in its day, but it was good. Dave Gardner would like to talk about hockey. Well, you should do that on Digital to Dice. And Dave, congratulations! I heard it was a great gathering. So I caught some snippets of it, man. Happy for you.
Yeah, that's why I listened to Digital to Dice. It got me back into playing hockey. I hadn't followed hockey in 50 years till I started listening to Digital Dice, and now I play hockey games all the time.
Well, I like listening to Dave too because his passion for hockey is the same as those of us who are. And I know Dave plays other games. I've seen him play, American football. He claims to be a casual baseball fan, but he knows more about baseball than he likes to let on.
The
Dave.
one thing about this,
we love you, Dave.
The series Dave did that still resonates with me. I think about it all the time. Is his doing the Cleveland Spiders baseball season. For me,
but I want him to do a good Cleveland.
That was the highlight of his career.
I know, but I want him to do a season in which they were good. 1895. Everybody thinks the 1899 Spiders. They were actually, except for that year, they were perennial contenders in the National League. They were tough. But yeah, that was fun. And here's a guy who claims to be a casual baseball fan, and he's playing. I've always liked Dave. He's awesome. But here's a guy that's playing 19th century baseball, and most of the serious baseball fans on here, you guys don't even touch 19th century, and you're missing fun baseball. And I loved him. Like, damn it. Here's Dave Gardner. I'm just a casual baseball fan. He's playing in the 19th century. That was awesome.
It was
whips,
fun, and the buggy whip advertising was great. As Jeff Hunter stops by, how you doing, Jeff?
Oh, Jeff's here?
He just popped in.
Oh, hey, Jeff. So, yeah, forget the Spiders play the 2024 White Sox or the 2025
maybe
Rockies.
Dave can do that on his show. I think that might be fun. Maybe he can win more games than they did.
So, but I just wanted to, I guess, ask this question to you, Bernie, and to the chat. Is if we forget that sort of visceral thing for a moment, why do some of you choose to prefer cards and dice, and why do some of you prefer digital for a baseball experience? Not I'm not talking about rolling the dice, looking at cards. I'm talking about that the playing, managing, whatever, a game of baseball. What makes you feel closer to the actual game of baseball, and why? Would it be digital or cards and dice?
Well, I like them both. Don't get me wrong. I play them
Mhm.
both for different reasons.
But you got to pick one. There's a meteorite heading toward Earth. It's heading right for Vegas, and the only way that we're saved, Bernie, is you have to choose one.
Well, you're going to be surprised by my answer because I am a digital gaming person. 95% of my gaming time is spent with digital gaming. But if that was an asteroid heading for Vegas,
Absolutely.
in my neighborhood,
Yeah.
I would want to play cards and dice to slow the process up.
Brilliant. I love it. Okay.
I think in the end, I want to end up the last day on Earth when I sit down and play my last game of baseball. I would like it to be just like the first game I played as a 12-year-old, 11-year-old in 1962.
I love
I
it.
would like to be sitting on my living room floor with the cards spread out, rolling the dice, playing cards and dice. And
Well
that's probably
played.
not an answer you thought you'd get from me because that's not what I do now. But I think that's how I'd like to end it.
I think it's bloody brilliant. I really do. So okay, that's cool to slow down. I love it. And next time I talk to Dr. Neil deGrasse Tyson, I'm going to let him know, look, we've got the answer. We don't need to nudge asteroids. Just get everybody on the planet to play a game of APA, Strat, Status Pro, Inside Pitch, which, yeah. So
there's two games I want to learn before I go to wherever we go.
Diablo 4?
I need you to teach me how to replay a season with baseball for Windows, which I still can't do.
Yeah.
And someone needs to teach me how to play Inside Pitch, cards and dice, which totally confuses me.
Well, that's David Baseball Demos or RJO Network there, buddy. I'm never touching that game.
You know, I want to tell you something, which I've told you in all our other episodes. I haven't missed doing this in any episode. And I did promise you we could go for more than an hour, but we are at an hour. If you'd like to call it a podcast, we could do that. If you want to stay on and chat, we can do that.
Let's chat for a while. Come on.
Okay.
I don't have a girlfriend, Bernie, so I'm free here. Let's do
I'm
this.
glad you mentioned that because
we just broke up last week. So
I was just telling somebody the other day, I hadn't heard you mention your girlfriend in months.
Yeah, we're over. So anyhow,
what did she think of your hobby?
So she liked baseball. She thought it was really cool. I mean, she thought it was neat. She thought, really cool. Oh, wow, you have a YouTube channel, not? So she thought it was cool. She wasn't a sports fan, but she liked baseball. Of all the women I've ever been with, only 2 were actually baseball fans. I remember my ex-wife and I, we would go to, when the Toledo Mud Hens were at home, we were at every home game. Seriously, man. She loved baseball. So yeah, I got lucky there, but most of them, and she was very artsy. Most of the women I've been with are very, very sort of artsy, creative types. And so, for a lot of them, while I'd be talking about, and I am too, but I'd also be talking about baseball and they'd be like, as they're, painting or doing whatever. But yeah, but that's over. So I got time to chat, man.
Well, that's good because I got a question for you, being the digital guy that you are.
Mm-hmm.
I've known you for a couple of years, and in those 2 years since we've met online and we've hit it off, we're pretty close, I'd have to say.
Dude, yeah, you're the guy I want to hang out with and talk baseball all the time. Are you kidding me? Yes.
I listened. You have a wide knowledge of a lot of digital games. Has there ever been a digital game that you just couldn't stand and you took it off your computer because you didn't want to ever see it again?
Yeah. No, wait. Well, let's clarify. because there is one I took off, but it was because of the customer service. But I don't consider Strat PC a purely digital game, so I can't talk about that one, I guess. To be honest with you, the one that I used to buy every year that I bought this year, and I think that's going to be it, only because I got a discount, is Baseball Mobile. And the reason being is just because it's a digital game that is the most limited of all the digital games I play. And that's why I don't play it, because it's just limits me. I can't do in that game what I can do in just about every other digital game I have, and I have a lot of them. So yeah, I would have to say that it's still on my PC.
But I want to know, are you still buying it every year?
Well, if Clay's going to give me the big discount, yeah, I'll buy it. So that's what I'm doing.
He sold it months ago and I bought it, but he's got a couple of things I wanted to test out.
On Baseball Mobile?
Yeah, a couple of new things. He put real schedules in, he said. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know if they really show up. But
well, I mean, real schedules, but you had real schedules going way back to Baseball for Windows. So I'm like, whoopee, Clay.
Yeah, but he never had real schedules.
No, he didn't. But give me the ability to create the leagues that I want. He's always going off on Out of the Park Baseball. But it's like, Clay, look, dude, your game can't do what Out of the Park Baseball does. When it can do that, I'll start playing it more. Dombrov can do every damn thing too. And Dombrov might not be as, by the way, newsflash, guys, thanks to Samuel Smith, Richard Dombrowski is now considering retooling the UI and changing up the splash screen and everything, and because it's a very good game once you get past the initial mess. But that being said, Bernie, that would be the game that I would remove. Have I tried some?
Baseball is the one I removed from my computer.
So what is it? 4th Street Baseball? Robbie Wartburg, may his memory be eternal, did everything he could. I downloaded the game. I tried it. I loathed it. And I uninstalled it with a quickness, my friend. That will never, ever pollute my bits and bytes. It's an awful baseball game. It's awful. And it's expensive as hell. So let me see. Hey, Jeff. You just Midlife Crisis just discovered Professor of Rock. Bernie, can I take 2 seconds to talk about this guy?
Well,
Professor
it's past
of
an
Rock.
hour. It's past an hour, so my voice is leaving me. You can have all the time you want.
Bada boop, bada beep, bada boom. If that Turk shows one hand, that's the Godfather. So the Professor of Rock, guys. If you're into rock music, and if you're not, why aren't you? This is the best rockumentary channel. This dude is he and Rick Beato. Rick Beato's amazing. The Professor of Rock is fantastic. If you guys haven't subscribed to that channel, he's a big YouTube channel too. He doesn't know me from Adam or Bernie for that matter. But check out Professor of Rock. You will get hooked. So Midlife Crisis answering that question about the asteroid hurtling toward Vegas. This time it's coming toward Philly. He says he'd probably do cards and dice. He said he can relate with you, Bernie. He says every time, so and then that's where he brought in, he's talking about the reminiscence. So there's the other thing is the emotional hook. Yeah, Beato. And so Dave knows about Rick Beato. In fact, Dave, I got his theory books, even though I'm trained in theory. I bought Rick Beato's theory series. Amazing. My ear training improved exponentially. And yeah, Professor Rock. He wears great hats and cool glasses. Yep. So you guys know about Professor Rock. So Bernie, I know your voice is going, but so the nostalgia hook, that's the one thing that digital baseball gaming doesn't have for most guys, because again, most of you, and I'd love to know who the other person is. Please remind me who you are. If you catch this, put it in Bernie's comments and he'll let me know. There's one other person like me that started with digital baseball. There is not the nostalgia hook with digital baseball. It's hard to, right? Okay, so Out of the Park Baseball, unbelievably, now has been around for 26 years, just over a quarter century. I can't believe it. It seems like yesterday that I bought the first edition, 1999. But there isn't that same hook, right? If we just talk about the two dinosaurs, right? Strat goes back to 51, Appa goes back to 51 and Strat to 61. And so for a lot of you, You were kids. Bernie was, how old were you in 1962, my friend?
11 when I started.
11. President Kennedy, and 11 years old, and Bay of Pigs and all that kind of stuff.
You bet.
Right?
I
There
was
you go.
for both
And so-
events.
And so you had, you have that, there's that nostalgia hook that digital gaming just doesn't have. And there's not those, wow, I picked up this vintage 1949 APA set. I look, I will grant you and concede, that's not like, ooh, wow, I've got an Out of the Park 19. Well, of course you do. It's in your Steam account. So it's never going to have that nostalgia hook until you get dudes 50 years from now when Out of the Park 79 comes out. I remember I started in Out of the Park 26 on my GTX blah blah blah. So digital baseball's never going to have that nostalgia hook. It won't. I would have to concede that. Aaron, we've talked about Out of the Park. For them to do accessibility, they'd have to recode the game, and that's sad that they can't even make the 2D version accessible for you. I don't know. But to answer our questions, why digital gaming for me? Freedom. I want to create something. I want to. I love the history of baseball, Major League Baseball. I want to create something that is improbable, that is impossible. I want Hannes Wagner to face Roger Clemens. And I want to be able to take Aaron Judge and put him back in 1906, right? And see his home run power reduced. I want to bring Nap Lajoie forward. Digital gaming allows me to create a canvas, an ecosystem, a universe that cards and dice simply don't. It doesn't make digital gaming better in general. It makes digital baseball better for me. That plus the fact that just like a real baseball manager, I'm not looking at cards and dice and looking at a result. I am actually trying to think ahead of what that other manager is going to do. And so for me, it gives me a better baseball experience when I feel like managing. If I just feel like playing a game, cards and dice is beautiful. I'm going to do a pocket pennant run game tonight on the channel. And I love it, man. I love just rolling up the dice, looking at the chart, and there we go. Because there's suspense there. There's suspense. Brian, how you doing? Brian Hoxie says he just plays cards and dice. He says he likes filling out a scorecard, adding up the totals after the game, and physically rolling dice and finding the results. The main things that make it fun for me. And that is absolutely... That's absolutely cool. It's amazing. So Brian, we're not trying to make this a debate of which is the better platform and why you should play it, but rather why we have chosen the medium that we have.
I got a question.
Bernie,
I got a question for you, Beetle.
Okay, yeah, before your voice runs out, because I'm going to ask you one.
This has come up on the Field of Dreams Discord several times. Okay. And
I haven't visited there.
You being the baseball game historian, you might know this.
What's that?
Is there any cards and dice game that have formulas for normalizing cross error play?
I'm thinking cards and dice games.
Yes.
I think Ken Castro said that Fall Classic does that. I wish Ken was on here. I'm pretty sure.
Then I'm going to check that out.
And that's a cards and dice game because all the digital games will do that.
How they would do it.
I don't know how they would do it because all the really good all the really good digital games do that. Even games going back to full count baseball, you can actually normalize that to years and leagues and stuff like that. But I think he said it's Fall Classic. I'm pretty sure.
I'll have to check that out. Now, what question did you have for me?
Okay, I have to think a second here. My head blew up. That was a good question, man. No, it was a good question. So as far as Strat normalizes errors with their Hall of Fame card set. So, and I can see how they can do that, John, because they're doing that within kind of a specific, they're doing that, but what no cards and dice games, maybe apart from Fall Classic, can do is take a thing like a Fields of Dreams League, or take something like this tournament I'm doing on my channel right now, the Boston.com thing, and allow me to choose whether I want to normalize or not, or as we did in the McGreevy League, normalize everything to 1900 so that the 19th century players weren't penalized. So I don't even know how Cards and Dice could do that. If you, let's say you had the 1975 season, 1992, 1960, notice I'm mentioning a lot of Pirate seasons here. And 1967 for Bernie there, now I said it twice. And I wanted to.
Crisis says that he thinks season ticket is a normalized system. I'm just curious how they do.
So cross era is what you're talking about midlife. So you're saying that if I wanted to take, let's say I own 2 seasons, I own 1929 and I own 1992, and I wanted to take the National League from 1992 and the American League from 1929, and I wanted to do like mix them all up so that way the 1929 A's would be playing the 1992 Braves. How would I normalize? Because can you do that is what I'm asking. Because you guys know I'm a lot into cross era experimentation. Love it. I love having the 29 A's playing the 1986 Mets. I think it's brilliant. So that, I mean, if it does that, that's awesome. That's great. Because I'm not a season replay guy. So, yeah.
Well, I'd like to, anybody can drop me in line. I talk to a lot of these guys on Discord. If someone, I'd love to play a Cards and Dice game that was able to normalize the statistics for the particular game with players. Doesn't Pocket Pennant Run normalizes errors through changing their charts, don't they?
Yes, it does do that. And again, and so when you print the cards for that game, it will do that. Now, what's interesting about that, how it does it, so it doesn't normalize to the depth that Action PC or Out of the Park Baseball would. However, so let's say you have the 1906 Cubs and the 2004 Red Sox, okay? And if the Red Sox are playing the Cubs in 1906, you have to play by dead ball rules, and everybody's card changes. Flip it around, though, and if the 1906 Cubbies are playing the 2004 Red Sox, then it's modern baseball, and the cards change, which I think is a really, really great idea. And I know that Craig Harris probably doesn't want this to happen, but imagine if Appa and Strat could do that in Strat Max or Appa Go, or if John Herson would ever decide that he really wants to keep developing baseball for Windows, to be able to even take that kind of sort of nifty approach. Because you could do it and make print on demand for the cards. So hear me out, guys. So Strat players, for instance, right? You would take it and you say, okay, you could take 2 teams here because you're paying $200 and some a year for this game. You can print them out, right? They could even put a limit if they wanted to, because I know that they're all about that stuff. And say, okay, you want to create these teams, here's what you will do, and that's going to change the cards. So all of a sudden, Aaron Judge is playing back in 1906, and Aaron Judge is on the 1906 hitless wonder Chicago White Sox. Now his card changes. I think it'd be fun. Jamie says that he thinks stats should go out the window, and large difference across eras should be just who is good, average, or bad. I would agree with that, Jamie, but by what criteria? And let's take the legends out. Babe Ruth, Ty Cobb, Oscar Charleston, Hannes Wagner, Ted Williams are going to be great in any era of baseball. Pete Rose, Joe Jackson, whatever. But when we start about who was good, how would, and I'm asking you, my friend, I'm not disagreeing with you, but how would a company set up that kind of criteria? Because isn't History Maker Baseball kind of doing that? History Maker Baseball sort of puts stats to the side and creates a narrative based on, is this player a sad sack? Is he a superstar or whatever? So are you talking, because I've heard from people that actually History Maker Baseball tends to be pretty damn accurate then when it comes back to it. I don't know.
I love playing History Maker Baseball. It's a great game.
Do you find it's accurate?
Yes.
And yet it doesn't it uses stats as its basis for rating players.
It uses stats
right?
in a way I'm not smart enough to figure out how he does it, but
Okay.
It comes out right.
Does it really? That's really cool.
You bet.
So to Jamie's point, then that would work because there's a game doing it, right? In a sense.
There is.
So Brian here says, "I'm just helping you out, Bernie, since your voice is fading."
Yeah,
You said.
I hate to tell you, but at my age, I'm running out of gas. But you can.
Oh, wow.
I won't mind if you steal the audience and bring them over to your next broadcast.
I guess if you want, guys, can I just let me just hit Brian's
You
here?
can take all the time you want. I'm just going to sit here and listen to you.
No, we'll go. I'll go in a second. Brian says, "Oh yeah, there's no debating. You're just a PC gamer. It's what an individual enjoys. So many game nights now allows everybody to find what works for them, which is awesome." So, and you know what? Maybe that is the great closing comment, because and Bernie, just grunt or whatever works for your voice. It wasn't our intention in our first podcast back here to try to come out in favor of one or another. Originally, what we'd hoped was to get Ken Castro on here and Legend Sports Universe. But while both have played, kind of like Bernie and I have done both, if you guys go to Legend Sports Universe, he's making, he's making MLB The Show do what SD Studios never intended for it to do. He's made it into a baseball sim, which is astounding. And Ken Castro, this guy rolls up 500-600 games a year. And what we had hoped to do was to get these guys at the same time, but really hard to do. Legends is a sports editor for a major newspaper. And, Ken, he's enjoying his retirement and all the things that he's doing. But we wanted to kind of get their perspectives of not which is better, but why they choose that medium. But we were unable to do that. But Brian, I think you really summed it up nicely. And to some, it's going to seem like a sellout, but it's not. We choose. Would it be fair enough to say, Bernie, if you can get one more or two more syllables out, we choose what we've chosen because we feel that particular medium gives us the best interface into living out our fantasies of being baseball managers?
I think we all end up doing what we like to do. I think we choose games because they make us feel good. That's as simple as I can put it.
I like that. Well, guys, I'll help Bernie's voice out here. We between now and the next one, which will be around the middle of July, we are going to go back to monthly, even if I have a girlfriend by then, which I highly doubt it. But if I do, this is something I do want to recommit to. Bernie has been amazingly patient. If you guys have any ideas for a subject that you would, like to talk about, let us know in the comments. You can also just let me know too over on my channel, both channels, because we're always looking for ideas. And we're not meant to be digital to dice. We're not meant to be like the answer to them. Our approach is just a little bit different. And so while Dave and Ron do focus on gamers, they also focus on developers. And we want to try to keep this to what gamers are talking about. And I want to put a special plea out to the Cards and Dice guys. I'm racking my brain. How can we get you guys more involved? Because I sometimes feel the Cards and Dice players feel that they're being forgotten, and that's not the case. I just don't have the I don't want to say expertise, but I haven't played Cards and Dice really since I was in university. So I was in the in the 90s. So I'm super rusty, except for Pocket Pennant Run. And if you guys have ideas, how can we get Cards and Dice guys more involved in what we're doing in the community and involved in these podcasts? Please, please, please give us some ideas.
Don't leave John DFW hanging. He wants to know if you have your cards for your Cards and Dice game, or have you given them away?
Man. So what I have here in my collection right now, I have a lot of board games. I'm not talking Monopoly. I'm talking geek board games, dude. Tomb and Folklore and Gloomhaven and all that. I have one baseball game, and that was when I came to America. And it was a game that ID Jester did, and he hated it because it wasn't for season replays. But it comes with like, I don't know, 10,000 players from all over history, create your own teams, and it's kind of like an SI baseball. So that's the only one I have. You will be sad to know that I left Status Pro, APA, and Strat in Europe because I had to make choices, and it was like, okay, I got to bring home my music equipment and as much of my Magic library as I could possibly fit, and they won out. My baseball library I've rebuilt here in America. Magic library I've largely rebuilt. All my music's here, but yeah, the baseball had to stay back in Europe, and no way for me to get it back.
Well, there you go.
So, but Paul Fay is going to be in Denver. He has an extra copy of Status Pro Baseball. He's sending to me free of charge, man. So look out. I'm going to be back into Status Pro, baby. I'm going to be printing up cards like a madman from Digital Diamond Baseball because you can do that. So stay tuned.
Well, Beatles, thank you very much for spending the last hour and 20 minutes with me. It was fun. And thank everybody that chimed in on the message board.
Oh, you guys are awesome.
And,
you guys are awesome.
Tomorrow's Father's Day. So for all you fathers out there, I hope you have a wonderful day. And maybe you'll get some gaming in if you try, if your kids will leave you alone.
Wow. There you go.
Only for a minute. Anyway, thanks everybody. And we will be back again in July.
We'll be back again in July, and pop around my channel in a few minutes. We're going to do a game of something, probably Pocket Pennant Run, since now I'm in a pocket or a cards and dice mood. This is
you
Beatles
got it.
Eternally
Thanks, Beatles.
saying, yeah. All right, buddy.
Take it easy.
All right.